Hey, Don.
How's how's it going, man? Yeah,
So, uh, yeah, we were just talking before I clicked record. It's hilarious to me. So, on our last episode, we were talking about uh, the book has met or exceeded expectations for sales, things like that. That's good.
yes.
So, for this podcast, the video podcast thing that we're doing, I want to encourage you and anybody who may be watching right now to post on their site. So I know that Kim had put it onto her
Yeah,
Facebook site, and I think we've got quite a few views off that. It'd be great if
Kim Hawks Pasquini, yes, she did, and
yeah,
she's our next guest next week after Cliff Thompson, and so yeah, she'll be our first member of the music staff to talk with, and so yeah, it'll be fun.
oh yeah, she will. Well, like, Punk was
Punk was a cameo. Yeah, how do you? He was
yeah. I
Punk
was
was his
also
own
sort of
guy.
on music staff.
He
Yeah,
defines his own. Yeah, yeah, but she was like in the program big time.
full-fledged. Yeah, which would be fun. I don't know
Yeah.
if I know Kim or not.
Well, she was. I do a little bit, but I mean, I'm trying to. We'll find out the years. That's the thing. The music staff was. They were so dedicated that we hardly cross paths. But it'll be interesting to hear her take on that. So yeah,
That will be interesting.
had a
And
two great Camp of the Woods Facebook pages. I Camp of the Woods music staff, and I gotta get the name of the other. I know it just off the top of my head. So
And so, yeah, if we can do that, and then I think you've already kind of hinted to people that we might put up a YouTube channel just to make
yeah,
it easier, and it'd be easier for people to forward or
and
like.
subscribe to, which is free, and they get alerted when something comes out,
Yeah.
and that's been maybe one of the when we embarked on this, Tom, like we knew we'd have fun doing it, and we knew the content would be you know range from funny to maybe in-depth stuff and nostalgic, and the stuff that we're hearing from the guests is great, but the challenge
I'm,
has been like making it known that we're doing this. People that are finding it are like, hey, this is really cool, and like, yeah, just help
yeah,
us.
Facebook's hard to, it's okay. I
Right.
mean, there's nothing wrong. I don't think these go stale either. Just like I said last time, your book doesn't really go stale. So if you're watching this in 2030, get a copy of Don's book. It's fantastic.
There should be another one out by then.
Yeah, get all three books. There's another one here,
Oh, thank you.
Thunder Snow. So, first of all, an apology.
Huh?
I didn't mean to bring serious questions on that last episode.
Oh no, that hey, you never know where the things are going to go. And
No,
leadership is.
I thought it was fascinating. And I mean, it's not like I don't have or didn't have focus with my teenagers, but I really like that it felt like Don had a mission with his kids. I love that.
Yeah, me too. And you could tell he was proud of them from the episode previous to that, and their experience, and especially what they learned at camp in Tapawingo, and for them to take that and
Absolutely.
parlay it into some kind of leadership. Yeah, of course he's proud of it. So naturally, you took the opportunity to dive deeper into it. So
Be serious. I'm so sorry.
sorry, no, that's good. Yeah, it shows that we have like range. Right, you had in the video. You had a rubber glove on your head, and then you're deep into.
At one point, I was that, and then I got serious. Yeah,
Yeah,
spectrum. There's a full
exactly.
spectrum. Yeah,
Give the people what they want. They
we
want.
have, we're
So
like Shrek. We have layers. We're like an
Years. Yep, we peeled a few back. So
yeah,
Cliff Thompson, he
yeah.
preceded you, Tom, but I know you read about him in the book. Commissary, as a boat crew, we just pulled up in the Jeep, and there were the canisters.
Yeah,
Which wait till I have video of you
with
carrying
canisters.
canisters down. I do. Yeah, I don't
Oh,
think you've ever seen it before. But here was a guy that not only had to fill them, but he had to fill. Oh, by the way, the other 800 guests, and position the food, but Oh, by the way, he's also a surgeon that saved Grandpa's life. And let's just get right into it.
I'm going to have you read some of that out of your book.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Sure. Why not? All right.
So you might want to turn on sharing before we get there.
Did I not?
Uh,
Maybe not. Hold on.
no, yeah.
Let's.
Cool.
Good call. Good call. Advanced sharing options. Someday this will be automatic. You
Seems
got
like
it?
set it as a default.
That'd be cool.
That'd be cool.
All right. Are we ready?
We made him wait too long. He stepped away.
I might have got called into surgery or something.
Hope he's not on call.
All right.
Here we go.
There we go.
We need audio.
We could see you. We can't hear you. So there could be a mute button there. We're almost there.
Uh-huh.
There we go.
Hey.
Excellent.
Hey, all right.
Man, you're all grown up.
How's it going?
Cliff Thompson. Great to see you, man.
I haven't seen you in a long time. How you doing?
It's been a minute or 30 years, or it's been
a while.
Yeah.
I think I was trying to think. I think it was probably 98, 99 last time I saw you when you came up to my house with Gordon driving, because Gordon, he and Ann came over, and I guess he took you with him.
That's exactly right. He was old school, and when I was recalling that story with my dad, I just said, the crazy part about it, Dad, is that Grandpa just said. So our family was down there visiting them in Melbourne. They were staying at the Marriott they had a room there, and so my daughters. He was like, "Let your daughter swim in the pool with Grandma and Amy." But I'm going to take you somewhere. We're going to go see an old friend. And he didn't tell me who it was. And
Yeah.
and to my recollection, I don't remember that he like called you in advance or anything. He just assumed you were going to be home.
Which was always dangerous during those times. But
Sure.
yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
That was before cell phones were super common,
Right. And you were home and you were happy to see him, but Dad said that's how Grandpa rolled. He just like, we're gonna see him. They should be there. But anyway, this is great. And so Tom Orser and I have been doing this a bit.
Hello, Tom.
Yeah, and he came after you. We got to nail down your years. Tom was there.
Let's get the years.
86 to 88, but we could maybe start there to kind of dial it back. And we got a bunch of questions for you. I can't wait to get into it.
Well, I'll start with, I have a big family connection with camp. So my dad grew up in Brooklyn, and his dad was a big Camp of the Woodser. And then my dad, his brother, and his sister all were on staff at camp for multiple years during the 40s and 50s.
Wow.
And then, so they remembered Pop Tibbetts, but, the early, and then, it changed over. I guess Gordon came as secretary maybe in 33 or so. And that was long before, my dad or my uncle went there, but my grandfather had been up there, and that's when they had those tentels that were real tentels, the canvas tents and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So then, forwarded a few years, my Aunt Betty, who was married to the sister of my grandpa, married Erwin Demarest. And so my Aunt Betty, and then Erwin, of course, passed tragically at 61 years old. And then my Aunt Betty married Walt Maloon. And so, yeah. So, there's been a long family connection with camp. And so, and of course, Walt, and Betty lived in Orlando when we still lived down in Florida. And so we got to see them, not infrequently. And then, of course, everybody got old. So, and of course, I lived in Melbourne for about 20 years. And during that time, Gordon and Ann were down there at the Marriott and then the Buena Vita, after that. And so I got to see them intermittently. And then I saw, Don, your dad, Don.
Yeah.
My Don, you're a Donnie still. But anyway, I get it. I get it. You're all grown up now. But your dad was, he would stop in my office about once a year in the spring when they were down there. And I got to see him and touch base with him.
Man, that connection's deeper than I thought. I forgot about the Demorest.
That's a web.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Malone and the Florida. I knew the Florida, and I remember there was a connection that you had with Nate Forrester too, right?
Yeah, Nate and I went to the same church. So I went up first.
Okay.
So to get back to the original thing, I believe my first, one of my brothers went to camp a year before I did.
All right.
He was on music staff. His name is Victor. And then he only went 1 year. And then when I turned 16, I was chomping at the bit to get up to Camp of the Woods. So I went, and my first year, I think, was 80.
Okay.
And I was at Woodlands Dish, first year, 16. And so I got to know, Carolyn, Schoen, and that whole Woodland side of things pretty well during that year. Then the next 2 years, I did the commissary.
There you go.
Up on the hill.
Yep.
And that was with Mark Storms and Jim Brake. And so we were there for 2 years together, the three of us. And of course, that's when I got to know your mom better.
Oh, yeah.
When she was doing the dietary nutrition stuff and all that up there. And she had her little office right by where we were lugging cases all. Actually, she did pretty good. She always had, some kind of vegetable in there and a nutritious dessert. And I think she was pretty meticulous about that.
Started in 80. Through what years?
84. So I did 5 summers. And then the last 2 summers, 83 and 84, I was on music staff and played trumpet.
Okay.
And so then, got to know Doug Schoen pretty well and that side of things. So I got to see the various work areas of camp pretty well. My little brother, who you probably know, Don, his name was Stu Thompson, and he was on boats somewhere in the 90s for like 4 years or so. And my sister Karen was in housekeeping and music staff for 4 or 5 years in the 90s as well.
Wow, that's right.
Yeah.
We just had a Stu reference before. That's man, there's so much to unpack here. Going back to you went from Woodlands District to commissary. The first one of these we've done, I think, Cliff, you're like number 8.
Oh, wow. Huh.
Yeah, in this. But the first one was my Uncle Bob Purdy. And he was telling Tom and me that he was in an interesting position being in the family. He had come back, I think it was before he went to Hong Kong. Anyway, he felt kind of a need to sort of prove to the rest of camp or staff or whatever that he wasn't
a privilege,
a silver spoon privilege, right? Yeah. So he had any job of his choosing. So he intentionally chose commissary just to prove because it was the hardest job he could think of.
Yeah, that big pot of potatoes. Let me tell you, it was not light.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so
he was telling that story to 2 boat crew members.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You guys had those tins, with all the Tapawingo meals that you had to haul, and we had the 6 10-pound cans in a 42-pound box, and we'd stack 3 or 4 of those together to get up the stairs to bring them to Dots, and of course we were worried, if you fell through the side of those stairs going up into the kitchen. But anyway, it was pretty funny.
That building was rickety. Actually, that's a perfect segue. I got to ask you a little more about Dot and the crew and Ken Reed, but
yeah,
I actually have. Okay, I'm going to share the screen. See how this goes. All right.
Yeah.
How about this? Exactly. Does this look familiar?
Yeah, it sure does.
All right. Well,
the screen door would whop you in the rear end on your way up the stairs too with the spring. Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, this is perfect because so you know it's you spend so much time here. This to the left was what like it was a landing dock. That's where you would put
Yeah.
the loading.
Well, the garbage house was right below there on the left, but that
Yes.
was a work area that we cut the chickens and such in
Oh,
that work area behind those bricks or the
Okay.
lot
you're teeing this up so
on
perfect.
the
Yeah.
on the bandsaw. Yeah,
We're
yeah.
going to talk
Hold that
about that.
thought. Hold that
Hold
thought.
on.
Okay, got it.
Oh, this
Yeah.
is too good. So this is a walkway into. So my mom's office was here, and then this was like the storage. I wish I could. We had like a 3D version, but to the right was where all like the dried food was stored.
Yeah.
So we're about to see the door bust open, and the man at the bottom of our screen is carrying a couple canisters.
Oh, that's boat crew had to do that every. Yeah, isn't that hilarious?
Yeah.
I can't
Now,
believe you have that. That's me. And no shoes. I'm not wearing shoes.
no shoes. So I would contend that Tom is going to tell us that that was like chili and mashed potatoes or oatmeal, but I think Cliff would be like nobody could carry two canisters. It must have been like marshmallows and
Potato
tossed
chips.
or
Yeah.
something.
Something.
Potato chips.
Oh yeah, easy. That's right, and lots of space, like in the potato chip bags. No,
Yeah,
no, those were real. They had real weight to them. It
Yeah.
was fun to
yeah.
watch.
And the
So it wasn't
handles were
us
real
lifting it.
narrow, like cut in your hands. But this
Yeah.
is a little bit of life at the Fieldhouse Cabins. I wish I had more of this. It's only like 20 seconds long, but I think this is Rob Mitchell and Mark Hall.
Oh my word!
How
You
about
are.
that?
Is that is so cool.
Playing cards.
Yeah, and, well, Mark played a lot of basketball outside the Fieldhouse Cabins and stuff, and
Now, who's that guy?
really athletic. Oh my. Yeah, I can't fit that shirt anymore. No, I found two Camp of the Woods basketball, staff shirts that I had tucked away, and I'm like, I think my thigh could fit them now. But anyway, it is pretty funny. Yeah,
You tried to act mean, but you were too nice. Yeah, so it's going to play through again. That was Bob Butts, and I can't remember who Tom's going to show off. I'll take a step backwards.
yeah.
Uh,
That Bob was Sue's little brother, right?
yeah, she was a heck of
Yeah,
a singer, right?
yeah, that's right.
'Cause, yeah, you were in music staff. What an experience you had.
Yeah,
And this fella here, I feel like I should know, but this is probably 84, I think. Does that make
let's
sense?
see. It might be. I have to tell you, it judging by the shorts and everything, they were still pretty short. So it was early '80s for no doubt.
We're
It's
judging
Ah,
time.
funny.
We're
Yeah,
judging time by the clothes. I love it.
yeah.
yeah, it's
Well,
funny.
that's pretty much it. But the old field house, somebody's
Oh
bike.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not.
I think my last 2 years I was at the Fieldhouse Cabins, but the first 2 years, well, the first 2 years were in the large, Counselor Park cabins up at Boys Park.
You were Boys Park. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and that's when you had the bullet shower, and it was good because I was an early riser, so I got warm showers. But boy, the guys that slept in, it
Snooze
was
you
nothing
lose.
but cold waiting for them. And we always
Yeah.
had some guys that would be in there for like 45 minutes and just come out with rosy cheeks, and they were warm as could be, and there was no warm water for everybody else from there on. And it was pretty funny, but
Speaking of cheeks,
um,
hold
yeah.
that thought when you're speaking of cheeks because I got to reference something that you texted me.
Oh no!
hang,
Oh
hang
no!
on. So maybe take us through a day of commissary. You said you had to be there early, or you were an early riser already, which is good because it
Right.
led to the job. But like, what time on a typical morning were you at the dining hall? And
Got it. So the first year with Dish, you had to be there at like seven something to start, like 7:30 maybe.
yeah,
Then the second and third years, you had to be there before breakfast started getting served. So you had to be there before the music staff by a half hour, 45 minutes. So I would imagine that was somewhere in the 6:45 range or
yeah,
6:30.
yeah.
And so you got a chance to get the showers first. And then, music staff, you had to get there and be ready to serve before the guests at 8. So you were there probably 7:30, 7:45,
Man,
something like that.
that's
So,
real dedication. So, uh, before we get to the story though, but man, what memories might you have that come to mind with like working with Dot and that whole crew, or Ken Reed, or I
Yeah.
mean, it's been a long time, I'm sure, since you've thought of it, but
right. Yeah, I
just
got all kinds of memories about that. I mean, Ken had a Florida connection.
great.
The Park of the Palms and all that kind of stuff. If
Yeah.
you remember,
Sure.
they were down in Florida, he and May. So my dad knew Ken from like being on staff together or something long, long, long before I ever knew
No
Ken.
kidding. Wow.
So yeah. So anyway, Ken was always, very nice to me and had a good sense of humor, fairly quiet, but he could kick it up too. And he kept us working pretty well. I mean, he was nice, but he was pretty taskmaster
Yeah.
oriented and get the job done. And the crew that we had with Mark Storms and Jim Brake and I, we got along great. We divvied up the work well and all that, and those guys were fun to work with. And
Yeah.
but Ken had a really unique relationship with Dot and the boys, up there. I mean, the boys were
It was
were a
Donald.
little bit different than Dot. I mean,
Yeah.
they were a little rougher edges sometimes, and
Yeah.
and they didn't interact a whole lot with the outside camp staff until like Sydney came that year, where he played basketball a lot and all that sort of stuff. But Dallas and the other ones, they pretty much stayed, up there in the kitchen
They
for the
did.
most part.
Yeah,
Dallas
they
played
did.
basketball with us. He played basketball with us, right?
Some of the a little bit
Sydney
more
did,
pieces.
yeah.
Did you encourage them? You were a good player, man. You owned the paint when you were in there. You were tough, Cliff.
Yeah, I tell you, I hadn't been to Camp of the Woods probably since somewhere in the low 2000s, and but the year that I did go there, I played on the guests, and I put in 21 points and we won.
Nice.
And it was more informal at that time than it was, when we were in the 80s. But I thoroughly enjoyed that because I had been on the receiving end of so many guys
Yeah.
got left staff and gone to college and played well, and then they come in. But playing with the pros and stuff was boy, they sure made us look really bad. Mark McGuire and Thompson and all those guys. Oh man, they were phenomenal.
Yeah, they were amazing to watch. But
Yeah.
you were gritty. You were tough in there. I remember, and you were nice enough to kind of help you and Jim Rumsey and a few other guys when I was really just trying to get into basketball, but I wasn't big enough yet or strong enough. But you kind of helped me sort of break in such a way where I didn't throw me right in there to the wolves, but and then living down at the Point Cabins, great memories. So
Yeah.
Love it.
yeah, so Tom's gonna
And I tried to keep you and Scott from getting into too much trouble.
all right.
And
Good
I don't
segue.
know.
Right.
I don't know if your mom put me up to that or not. I can't remember, but
Probably.
it was fun hanging out with you guys.
Yeah. You mentioned something earlier in our text about you came down to the Point to do some water skiing, and I kind of do remember this when you said it.
Do you remember the little boat? Do you remember
Yeah.
your little boat that you had with like a 33 horse on the back or something like that?
I think it might have been a 70 horsepower.
Okay, yeah, but
At the most.
it was enough to barely get us up, but it could do it. And it was it was you, Scott, and I, and we were out, and it was kind of late afternoon on one of those days, and we're out on the lake. And I had taken you guys around, because you needed kind of 3 to go skiing, and I guess that might have been your boat rule or whatever. So I was
to be a spotter. By
I was,
law.
yeah, so I was the tag along third, and then I got a chance to ski as well. And so I'm kind of buzzing along, and we're way out in the middle of the lake. And lo and behold, the moons were rising. And I am telling you what, I almost fell over. And I could ski pretty well. I did a lot of slalom and barefooting and stuff. But I was on
Okay.
two skis, and I still almost fell over because,
I cannot tell
yeah,
you. I cannot tell you how many times I've been victim to that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Not proud of it, but hey, it's good to be able to laugh about it.
Oh my goodness, it was hilarious, and it really was in the middle of the lake. It's not like,
All right, right.
yeah,
There was some
it was.
discretion.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, you and Scott both nailed me. I'll tell you what, I can still picture it to this day because it
Sorry.
was just so. Oh my goodness! I mean, you guys were prancing around, and it was just so funny because I almost fell. It was I was laughing so hard.
There you go.
Two questions for you. First, Cliff, have you watched any of our episodes yet?
No, I haven't. I looked, and I don't have Facebook, and
No
so
worries.
I didn't know how to track it down because I just haven't been a big Facebook kind of guy.
Yeah,
Um,
we're
and
gonna port them. We'll port them over to YouTube eventually.
yeah, I'd love to see them. Yeah.
We'll put them on YouTube. Yeah, that's in the works. Yeah, but this is just great having you.
Second question:
Yeah.
have you read Don's book at all?
Oh, my eyes were riveted. What a great book.
So good, right?
Oh, it was fantastic. And it just the flood of memories and just all of the good things. And I'm glad the last chapter, Don, I'm really glad you wrote it. Because that affected me too. Because I was pretty close to Gordon, and then I saw your dad every year and everything, and then that happened, and I have to say I kind of lost my enthusiasm to go back, and
Yeah.
I'm just really happy to see that because I have a son and a few grandkids and his wife that are up in Plattsburgh, so they're like 2 hours away from camp now. And so I'd actually like to head back there at some point and take a look around because it's been over 2 decades for sure.
Wow, Cliff,
Yes,
I appreciate that, and I really hope that happens, and really love to hear about it when it does happen. And you are very special, to our family, and for working in the time we spent in the dining hall and more than that. But that means a lot. Thank you.
I'm just glad you did it. I'm sure it wasn't easy, and I'm just glad you did.
Well, you talk about the last chapter, and I get into this, but that last chapter was not going to be in there had those events of 2023 not happened. With Jack Zimmerman and Beth Markell and Jim Olson prior to that.
Yeah.
Jim Hammond got involved, but it was there was discretion, but I was talking to somebody yesterday that asked me about it, and they said it had to be hard to write that last chapter, and I said the crazy part of it was maybe the easiest one to write, and I felt like I was just being led to write it. I struggled more with trying to remember, what engines were on the ski nautiques, or, what was for dinner at the dining on Wednesday nights. And that one just kind of came out, and my dad and mom were moved by it, but they made one little tweak to it. But otherwise, and I have more to share here on this page about it, some videos that we took when we went back that no one's ever seen. But thanks for mentioning that. But yeah, Tom, there you go again.
So we're going to get cut off in about 8 minutes. Are you able to come on again, Cliff?
Sure.
We'll just
I'm good. I cleared the evening, so I'm good. I'm in my basement in a nice quiet room.
What would have to happen for you to get called away, or we could get into that?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm no pager tonight. I mean, although we don't have pagers anymore, it's the cell phone, and unfortunately, when they have your cell phone number, that makes it hurt that much more because you got to pick it up then. But nonetheless, yeah.
All right.
Well,
good deal. Great.
Just because of the amount of time, I think I'm going to skip the questions and go down. We'll come back to those slides there in a minute or in the next. But on our episodes, we like to do something we call story time with Tom, except we're going to do story time with Don.
Got it.
And we're going to ask him to read about you in his book. So Don, this is I'm going to put it up on screen so you don't need to get your book out, but this is on page 100 to 101. It's a great story, and we want to get your reaction, Cliff, to what we're going to read here. I know you've read it, but
yes,
and we made you not talk about it yet because we want to get your reaction off of this. So Don, here you go.
Okay. The ways of the kitchen would sometimes prove to have an impact far beyond just a summer job. In the early 1980s, after commissary workers Jim Brake, Cliff Thompson, and Mark Storms were shown the bandsaw used to cut up the chickens every week, Cliff and Mark came to Mom's office to express serious concerns. I noticed it leaves out Jim Brake. I wonder if he was like, give me that thing and throw out a hockey mask. Like,
I don't remember what Jim said, but we had cut them for weeks at that point, and they came in these fryers in the boxes. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Maybe there was a close call that you guys were like, that's enough. We need to talk about this.
Yeah.
I don't remember a close call, but I do remember Ken on his way. He'd come and check on us, and on his way up, he'd say something like, "Just remember, no one wants a 9-fingered surgeon," or something like that. And finish going up the stairs. And Mark, of course, he was athletic, and he was a pitcher in baseball. And to his story, he had an 89-mile-an-hour fastball at that time, and he didn't want to mess his fingers up to be able to grip the baseball either. So anyway,
that's great background. Yeah, I remember you guys were like you guys had like brawn, beef, like and Mark and Jim too. Like at the time, I saw him this summer. And it was so interesting to see such a slimmed down version of him from when he was, before he was lugging those things up downstairs. But as Cliff had plans to become a surgeon and Mark was counting on a football scholarship, now we know he was also playing baseball. They didn't want any part of that saw. When this concern was relayed to Dad, he quickly decided to start buying pre-cut chickens. Problem solved. He had to, which I know they were more expensive, but he didn't want to have, like you said, 9-fingered.
9-fingered.
Yeah.
Fast forward to the late 1990s during one Easter break, Amy, Anna, Claire, and I were visiting Grandpa and Grandma at their Marriott Courtyard room in Melbourne, Florida. After dinner, Grandpa asked me to join him for a car ride without mentioning our destination, while Amy stayed back with Anna and Claire to swim in the pool. Moments after we pulled into the driveway of a very nice house on the backside of the Indian River, none other than Cliff Thompson came running out and gave Grandpa a huge hug. Cliff was also pleasantly surprised to see me as we work on staff together earlier that year. Yes. So what's that, Tom?
Yeah. Was that an uncomfortably long hug?
Hey, listen, what Gordon had been through, I was happy he was still there to hug, So I'll tell you, yeah.
Oh, this is, I have to ask you about this, and Tom, I know we kind of talked about this before in writing. I got a pointed question about that actual experience, but I'll wrap this up. Earlier that year, that should have been a new paragraph. It was Cliff who, as head of surgery at Holmes Regional Hospital, had performed emergency life-saving surgery on Grandpa. It turns out that as a 17-year-old commissary boy, Cliff's concerns about subjecting his hands to that bandsaw hit closer to home than anyone could have foreseen. Yes, the ways of Heaven's Kitchen on the hill. I guess kind of just a direct question about what that was like. I mean, it was life-saving surgery, and I don't know if HIPAA laws apply here or statute of limitations about how long it was, but I don't even really know like the nature of what it was, except it was very serious. But when all that went down, was there a part of you that was, I mean, you have to kind of compartmentalize, I'm sure, as you're performing surgery, but was there any part of you that was being kind of hit with like like who that was and the personal connection that you were
Well,
in?
here's the behind the scenes, and I won't go into
Please.
the diagnosis and medical stuff, I guess, too much. But the point is Gordon was in the ICU and he was trying to die, and I mean really hard, hypotensive, low blood pressure. He was on his way out, and there had been his medical care was in a group different than mine. Now Melbourne had three main groups of doctors at that point. And so for surgeons, like I was head of the group in MEMA, which was the largest group in town, and he went to the Osler group for his medical care. So typically the MEMA primary cares and everything referred to the MEMA doctor, the MEMA surgeon, and the Osler referred to the Osler surgeon and all that. So without using any names or whatever, they had gone through two surgeons prior to me that refused to operate on him because he was too sick and he was going to die. And they were okay with that because they just didn't think they could save him. So I got the call from actually, I think at the time it might have been Tom Howard, the pulmonologist that took care of him. And I think he asked for another opinion. And so I went and gave opinion, and I mean, I knew that Gordon was really fairly limited at that point. If you remember, he was golf carting, at that point around camp, and that was the exercise for the day, and his lungs weren't great and everything, but I talked to everybody that was there, and I even talked to your dad, Don, and it was a bit of a long shot in a way because he was just that sick, but everybody was on the page to go for it. A lot of things to think of, one of the things was just that I think that, well, one is that I know what operation he needed to save his life, and I had a pretty good idea of what was giving him his problem, and then the second thing was, do you think you can get him to live through it? Because he was so sick.
Wow.
And so, he was getting transfusions and all that. So and then of course I had to talk, to the family because it was a bit of a, he was in rough shape. And so it was one of those things that it may not turn out well, but I didn't care from my personal standpoint of giving him a try, even if it didn't work. I felt like, we needed to give it a try. And I knew his resolve. I mean, so I, even though his body was frail, I knew that he had a lot of resolve, and sometimes resolve can help you get through those pinches.
Can we substitute the word resolve with stubborn?
All of the above, and he had a tremendous amount of faith,
right.
And so we prayed and everything before we went back, and it really was a God's will sort of thing. But it ended up that the first few days, and that's, you guys showed up not too long after that. At least your dad did and such. I can't remember if you came down with him or not at that time, but it was one of those things where after a couple of days, it looked like, hey, we have a shot here. He may be able to dig out of this, and then started making progress. And then, whether we could get him off the ventilator and all that sort of stuff, but he had what it took to get it done. So it worked out.
It's amazing. It's just, I mean, it's almost storybook kind of stuff, like movie stuff, like, to know you from your family and a family connection, and then you work in a camp, and there are so many factors that you just can't not think it was something that God wanted to happen. I can tell you, Cliff, he lived a couple more years after that, and physically it was tough. He was in a scooter, but he was together cognitively enough that I wrote about this, that he was determined to be there for my cousin Dougie's wedding there in Apopka, and there were family there, and some former staffers, and he was great during it. Almost fell out of the scooter one time, but
Oh
he
boy.
died
Yeah.
like a month later. But he
Yeah, that was in 2004, I think, is when he
2004.
finally passed, and on
Yes.
a Sunday, I think, to beat all things. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Second bell there.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think that was March, somewhere around the
Yeah.
21st, in 2004.
Yeah.
And but anyway, yeah,
Wow. Yeah. Just it's an amazing story.